She stood in front of a camera, voice shaking, eyes dry. This could be my son. This could be anybody's child. Nobody called back when she filed the report, so she started talking loud. She built a table out of nowhere and let the families crowd. She ran the town halls, she made the calls. She became the voice inside the gaps that swallowed them all. Then she got on a plane and she traveled that road to sit with a 15-year-old boy who had nowhere left to go. They were not runaways, they were targeted. Promises of money, gifts, attention from older men who knew exactly what they planned. Could be anyone's son, could be the boy on your street, lured by a lie, loaded into a car, hundreds of miles from everything he'd known. Could be anyone's son, could be yours, could be mine, but he's somebody's son. And we are running out of time. Trap house, he does not leave unless they say so. They told him he's a soldier and gave him a product in a pack. 14 years old, he was told he owed a debt, moving away from men who haven't lost a night's sleep yet. He's the shield when it goes wrong, he's the face they feed to the law. A child serves less time, they didn't just know that, they counted on it, they built on it, they banked on it. They were not runaways, they were targeted. Promises of money, gifts, attention from older men who knew exactly what they planned. Could be anyone's son, could be the boy on your street, lured by a lie, loaded into a car, hundreds of miles from everything he'd known. Could be anyone's son, could be yours, could be mine, but he's somebody's son. And we are running out of time. Could be anyone's son, could be the boy on your street, lured by a lie, loaded into a car, hundreds of miles from everything he'd known. Not a criminal, a survivor of what we can imagine. Not a statistic, a boy with a name and a family fighting. Could be anyone's son, could be yours, could be mine. He is somebody's son. Stop looking away, we are running out of time. She traveled to Thunder Bay, she sat with that boy, just someone who looked at a missing child and refused to look away. And she will not stop until they all come home. The question is, will you?
Live on the air, Trial Junkies United presents Justice After Dark with your host, Z.
We had Farquhar, I'll Be Frank, our mods, Irish, Semi, and Fala. And I'm sure Katrina's lurking somewhere. But thank you guys for coming. What, Doc?
Lurk.
Hey, Mustang. Good to see you. Greetings to all of our trial junkies, our truth seekers, and our justice warriors. I'm Z, your storyteller in the wilderness of injustice. And tonight, please stay with us because what we're about to talk about is happening right now. And it is in real time. This is real children, and not enough people are saying it out loud. And tonight's episode is about boys, not men, boys, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, some as young as 9, boys from stable homes, from Brampton, Ontario, boys with parents who loved them, checked on them, texted them back. These are boys who one day walked out their front doors and disappeared into a pipeline that moved them hundreds of kilometers from everyone who knew them, moved them to different providences. In 2024, over 322 male youth were reported missing to the Toronto police. Black boys made up less than 10% of the age group in the city, but of the missing boys, nearly half were Black. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. And patterns have architects. The woman you were about to hear from, she saw these numbers, saw those faces, and she refused to look away. Her name is Shana McCalla, and she's the founder of Find Ontario's Missing Boys. It's a community she built back in 2024 after she found out about 5 missing Black boys from the GTA. And they were circulating online with almost zero mainstream attention. I watched her in an interview before we sat down together, and something she said, you guys stopped me. She said, that could be my son. It could be anybody's son. And that's why nobody is talking about this, and we should be. And I knew right then this was someone we needed to talk with, because if this is happening in Ontario, it's happening elsewhere. Criminals are nothing if they're not resourceful, and they find what works. They profit from it, and others take notice. This isn't just a Canadian problem. It's a blueprint. It's going to be copied. And we sat down with Shana, and it was an honor. We pre-recorded the interview for her convenience to match her schedule. So the upside of that is Doc and I are going to hang out in the chat with you guys tonight.
Woo-hoo.
So go ahead, Doc, and let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
Okay.
Anyone know what commercial that's from?
Okay.
Here we go. Let's get started. Shana, thank you so much for coming on. I had caught one of your interviews, and it really got me to thinking. And first of all, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience? Tell us a little bit about who you are and your background.
So a lot of people, my background is not necessarily in advocacy. I didn't really see this coming. Kind of hit me like a freight train.
Nor do many people. They don't see it coming. So.
No, especially the families. Most of them don't see it coming. So my background is in production. So I'm a multimedia producer, essentially. When I collaborate with other people, I typically am like the financing side of producing. So I come in and I help them like figure out their finance structure and their budgets and access some of the tax credit system here in Canada. So I do a lot of that. And but I launched my production company and my radio station in 2012. So I have some multimedia background mixed between like film, TV, and radio, and now XR too. I'm into XR as well. I'm a bit of a techie myself. But I'm also the founder of Find Ontario Missing Boys, which was really birthed at the end of 2024. And that's a grassroots initiative supporting families that are navigating cases involving missing, exploited, and vulnerable youth here in Toronto, mostly across the GTA, but they are taken far from home. Much of the work like focuses on prevention now, and systems navigation, advocacy for the families, helping them so that they feel supported during times of crisis, really.
Yeah. When and how did it come to your notice that there were so many missing young men in your community?
Yeah. So a community member reached out to me in the fall of 2024. He lives in the east side of the GTA, which is like considered Durham region, but it's a bunch of different cities um, that make up the Durham region. And he lives in Whitby. So he actually contacted me one night. He was driving home from work and he was like, Shana, do you know so many boys like the same age as my son are missing in my area? And I was like, didn't know. I didn't hear anything. Haven't seen anything on the media. Nobody was talking about it. So I logged that in my mind. I was like, okay, something's going on, but I didn't act on it immediately at the time. And then like a week later, my uncle actually sent me a video on WhatsApp, and it was an independent journalist, and she actually had posted a YouTube video with the 6 flyers. It was actually more than the 3 that were missing from his area. It was 6 altogether, and they were all the same age. So I was like, that is weird. Like, how are all these 15-year-olds going missing? And there's no, they don't qualify for Amber Alerts. We can get into that later as to why, but nobody was talking about it. I didn't hear anything on social media. So at that point, I actually went on the Missing Children Society of Canada website. I looked at the information. I took screenshots of each flyer and I created this reel. And within, I think it was 3 days, it was like it reached over 10 million people. And that's when the flood of families started reaching out, like saying what they were experiencing, that no one was looking for their kids, that there was no urgency, and just that really finding them at the bottom, like really a loss of hope as to like what had happened to their children. So it was really me utilizing my media platform, my radio station, to bring awareness to like, hey guys, like there's something going on in the city. And then once the family started reaching out, I realized that this is a bigger problem. And I launched a series of town halls across the GTA. And that is when I started meeting the families in person.
And just for the people that are in our US audience, what is the GTA?
Yeah. The Greater Toronto Area. So that's like the downtown core or like Toronto area, and then like the suburban areas that are attached to it. They've expanded Toronto now to include like Mississauga, Oakville, Vaughan. Like well, Vaughan was probably all still already Toronto, but it's like north of the city, and then the east end of the city. So it's all like the corridors surrounding the Toronto core.
Okay.
And so all of a sudden to have all these young missing men, yeah, or boys, they're boys. They're you said
Mhm,
about 15 years old. Um,
mhm.
that
That's a
is
target. That's a target age, 15.
15. Okay. Do you think the target age is 15 because if they go too young, it's too noticeable?
Well, the youngest attempted child exploitation case that I've tracked is 9 years old.
Okay.
Um, so it's they don't they don't there's no it seems like there's very much
Right.
lack of morals. They don't, very young as they can get, because then they can start the grooming process, and quite often the grooming process takes time. Um, so but the core group is between the age of 12 and 17.
Okay.
15 would be like the median. And I think it's because of the Toronto system, or the Canadian system. I think it's across Canada, not just in Ontario, where once a child turns 16, they have more freedom to, like, for example, if they don't show up at school, like you won't get notified as a parent. They're considered to have like their own agency, even though they're still minors and they still live in your household. So that 16-year-olds, it feels like they want to get them to a point where, okay, they're about to turn 16. Now they have free will, in the sense where, they don't have to come home, and then they're considered runaways. And that's what we're finding. They were being considered, running away running from something or to something. And that this was like quote, like I'm quoting people that were saying this in the media. Very disheartening, and for the families it was very insulting, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Mhm.
That to me and Doc, runaway is a dirty
Yeah,
word.
it's horrible.
It's just become a word, it seems like, for authorities not to even bother looking for children. Um,
Yes.
and especially if they're minority children. Because we deal a lot with MMIP cases, with the missing and murdered indigenous people. And so, yeah, they do, they just want to slap on runaway and then, or tell the families, you can't report it for 24 to 72 hours, which is not true. You can report it. Now, whether they act on it, it's a whole other ball game. But it seems like they want to use that as an excuse.
It's absolutely an excuse. It's just we've had several cases where a parent will try to file a missing persons report and they're told, oh, you just wait. Like we've had cases where they wait months. We've had cases where there's never an opportunity to file a missing persons report. One of our boys was, I think, missing 11 months and they still didn't put the missing persons report out. So sometimes you file the report and then it takes 4 months to even have the missing persons flyer posted. So it was really bad when I started advocating. It was like these were just forgotten children.
Yeah. And we see that too here a lot. We see families putting their own flyers together, which sadly should not have to happen, but it does because otherwise they get no help, you know. Um,
Yeah.
that it breaks my heart to see. But what did you find out when the grooming process? Are they also grooming the parents?
No, the parents are
Okay.
not, left in the dark. Like a lot of them, they send their kid to school and then their child just doesn't come home. Or they send their kid to basketball practice and the child just disappears. There's a lot of times, and that's why I started teaching the red flags, because parents were not picking up on the red flags. They didn't know what to look for. And that's when I really started sharing like the signs of human trafficking. And they're very identical
Yeah.
to the tactics that are used with girls. Like there's this for the girls, it's like becoming like a romantic partner or a caregiver in a sense, taking care of them. Same with the boys, so they're gifting them with things, new pair of shoes, winter jackets, taking them out to McDonald's every week, buying them things, and then they can create the debt bondage. Right now, oh, you
Right.
think this is a gift? No, jacket is $300 and absolutely not a gift. You have to work it off. So there's this brotherhood, that if it's a male, there's a brotherhood, this mentorship that they'll try to, or work opportunity that they'll try to present. And they use their vulnerabilities against them. So if they express that they're feeling ignored or they're having trouble in school or anything like that, they will use that to, say, oh, your parent didn't help you with your math homework. Well, they don't care about you. They don't have time for you.
Yeah.
And that this grooming process takes time. Sometimes it takes days, sometimes it takes weeks, sometimes it takes years. It just really depends on the child and what they're going through. So it's very nuanced, but the cases are similar in the sense where the child has something that they target. For example, the 9-year-old was told his father lives in Montreal, which is another province in Canada, and he lives here with his mom. And this adult male said to this 9-year-old, hey, if you come with me to Montreal, I'll help you find your father. And that was one of the most sinister things I had heard, because this adult has no intention of reuniting this child with his father out in Montreal, but wants to, get control of him under the pretense that he's helping him in some way.
And how many young kids wouldn't want, if that's really a goal that they want to find their dad, you're right. It's totally sinister. It's just, just creeping into their brains. and using.
it becomes a situation where, I'm helping you find your father. I need you to help me.
Exactly. And it's just like it just makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
When I heard that story, and then that same individual was already in control of like 5 other boys in that same area. So I call those clusters, where, they live in the environment, they get familiar with the kids, and then they will target a group of them. And that's why we're seeing a lot of rise in like car thefts. We're seeing a rise in home invasions. We're seeing a rise in jewelry store heists. And a lot of times they're young kids that go and do these things, and they're being controlled and told what they cannot do, threats of violence, acts of violence. Because I've had boys reach out to me myself and have expressed what they've gone through, and it's just some of the things that they tell me is horrific. So there's a fear, and there's a control, and a child cannot consent to exploitation. Definitely not a 9-year-old, and not a 16-year-old. It's the same rules apply across the board. And I keep telling people that, because some people, once they commit a crime, now it's like, okay, they're bad kids, they're gang members or whatever they want to stereotype them as. But they have to really remember that this adult has infiltrated this child's life. When this child should be playing hockey, this child should be in school, this child is now taken to 1,400 kilometers away to Thunder Bay, where they know no one and they cannot return. They don't have a health card, they can't access health. Anything can happen to them, and these people are not concerned with that at all. It's terrifying.
Well, I think a lot of people don't understand what conversive control is, when you coerce someone and then you become in charge of them. And I think that's something we really need to get out there, because it happens with males and females, regardless of the age. So yes, you might think that they have the freedom, because I know I've had Chong Kim on, who was a trafficked victim, and she's been an advocate for over 20 years. And she said, you'll see some of these trafficked victims, they may put them on a plane and they fly across the country on their
Yep.
own. That does not mean they're no longer in control.
Yep.
Someone is still controlling them. Either out of fear, it can be threats to them personally, it can be threats to their family. They've been told, if you don't do what we want, we'll go get your little brother, your little sister. So
We saw
these
that.
young.
We saw that happen recently. Like these 2 guys abducted this guy, this older youth's little brother, took him out to like up north somewhere at a farm, had him tied up. Like they just got, I think the trial just started, full on abduction. These people will take your family members, and these kids know that there's a fear that they will be harmed, their families will be harmed. That you're absolutely right. It happens all the time.
Yeah. And so I think for people in authorities to, oh, well, it's a bad kid now, he committed a crime. No, you have to look at why the crime was committed. Was someone else controlling the whole situation? And that's one reason that we do what we do, is trying to get the word out there that you have to look at the whole picture. And you also, I'm sure, have you found that this is involving children from all backgrounds? It's not just the single mom's child, but sometimes they can have both parents at home.
A lot of our boys have both parents at home. Some of them are higher income families, where both parents are making 6 figures. Sister works for the government, brother's a plumber. Like we have there's no socioeconomic boundary to this crisis. It can come to anyone's door at any time. And I said that a lot. Nobody is safe. So, and then I got, more people to care, because it's not just Black kids. We're seeing with Korean children as well. We're seeing with white boys as well. I've had one personally contact me and tell me his scenario and his story. Grateful that he was comfortable enough to share with me, but he was shot at, his phone was taken. And I told him, like, you need to get away from these people. he was still in with these people. He was moved around to different provinces. This is a young teen. I think he just turned 16 recently, but I started talking to him earlier this year when he was still 15. He expressed what he had been through. And yeah, so it's all races. Majority I'm seeing that are contacting me is like Asian, white, and predominantly Black. An overwhelming amount, over 50% of the missing children in the Greater Toronto area are Black boys, and we represent less than 9% of the population. So it's a staggering amount. 150 boys in 2024. And these are not just simple missing persons cases. These are child exploitation and human trafficking cases. And I think that's what I had to really push for. It took the police, Toronto police, 4 months to even recognize that this was trafficking or admit that this was trafficking. Now they're handling it differently. They're recognizing it now. And they're trying to implement strategies to combat this. But it took a long time, and it was going on long before I started advocating. It's not new. Like the missing and Indigenous and murdered women here, we have the same issue, and it's still happening. So it's really something that needs continual pressure on the system. And we're not inventing laws here. Human trafficking laws exist. Child trafficking laws, child exploitation, like we're not inventing a new form of law here. These laws exist and they need to be accessed for all vulnerable children.
Yeah. And I think too, one of the issues is that people don't understand what labor trafficking is, because we've done a story just recently on some women that were actually going to uh, like a rehab place, and of course it was religious. They put religion, they use faith to bring these people in to work and then don't pay them. And so I know for our audience, it was a wake-up call for some. They'd never even thought of labor trafficking, and it's like, yeah, it happens. So does debt trafficking. Everybody thinks the Epstein files, especially down here, that's what's in the news, and they think sex trafficking. A lot of times with sex trafficking, they don't even think that boys are involved, and it's like, no. Um, I know we've worked with Lissa Yellowbird Chase, who's an advocate, a huge advocate, and she's the one that mentored me and showed me that they actually make more money from boys in sex trafficking. You have, as you start advocating, you start seeing more and more. And then you see the work we all have to do to get the word out there so that we're aware and that people, like you said, can see the red flags and
Yeah.
put a stop to it.
Yeah, we have one confirmed case of one of the boys that involved sex trafficking, and there could be more, but boys are more reluctant to come forward. Girls are reluctant
Yes.
to come forward in these instances, much less boys, right? It's very, and they're also similar to girls. They don't even identify that they've been victimized a lot of the time.
Yes.
Similar to young girls who have been sex trafficked, they don't recognize their victims. Sometimes they go back to these predators. Time and time again. It's public information, right?
Yes.
So the same rules apply once again. Not all of these boys will recognize themselves as victims right away. They have to understand what has happened to them, the process of manipulation and coercion that has gone on. And there's this, especially with boys, there's a pride. I'm not a victim. I'm a man. And, a lot of boys are told, man up. Man up. This is a common phrase. They're not allowing boys to be boys, and it's just beyond tragic, the stories that I've heard and have when I go and I sit down in the homes of these families and break bread with them, and they're like my families now. It's just yeah.
When you started this, you actually wrote out some things that you thought that the government needed to become aware of. What were some of the main things that you felt that they were overlooking that needed to be addressed in these issues?
Geography was a big part of it. Cross jurisdiction movement of children. they were not connecting the dots, or and they weren't communicating across jurisdiction is what I found. So I identified the red zones. I made them public on my social media page, on the Fight on Terror Missing Boys page, and listed them. The list continues to grow. These are Northern Ontario towns. Some of the boys are even taken onto reservations, as you mentioned earlier. It's closely connected to the First Nations community, and they are also suffering from drug addictions and things like that. So these traffickers, these criminal organizations, enterprises, really, they are targeting them because they get income from the government. So they know when the income comes in, they put these boys into trap houses around Northern Ontario towns, and outside of Ontario too, because we have a case of one boy who's been tracked to Pelican Arrow, Saskatchewan. That was his last known location. And that's another First Nations community. So, it's closely interconnected. And I would like to make some allies on that side, because we need to come together. It's a problem that both communities need to come together to coordinate a strategy to ensure that children are protected. Right. So, yeah.
Now, in Canada, on the reserves, do they have their own police departments?
Yeah, they
Because
do.
they're
They have their own.
because they're considered sovereign nations. Are they allowed to arrest non
Indigenous.
First Nations members
Right.
that commit crimes on their reserves?
Oh yeah, they do, and they work very closely with like the OPP, which is the Ontario Provincial Police. The Ontario Provincial Police has all jurisdiction access, so they are the provincial police for the entire province. When you get out into the more northern cities, you won't see as much jurisdictional police. So like in Toronto, we have multiple. We have Toronto Police, we have York Regional Police, we have Durham Regional Police, we have Peel Police, we have like every little jurisdiction in the GTA has its own police service. Brant Police, so everywhere in the localized area. And then as you spread out, it's just OPP. And then on the highways, it's OPP, like that's their territory. And then as you get across Canada, we have the RCMP, which is like your form of like the FBI, but ours is like less cooler, like they ride horses and stuff. So now I'm dealing with RCMP with the cases that we're tracking out of province, then it becomes an RCMP case. And each First Nations community has their own police type of service, but they still have to work with I'm finding that they're still working with the OPP. They're not very much, from what I can tell, they're not really fond of the RCMP because of the history. And there's a lot of mistrust with not just with the Black community, but the Indigenous community as well with police, because of the legacy of abuse. So that also creates a boundary. And that's back to what you're asking me about things that I put forward, is like, you have to rebuild trust with people. These families don't want to come to you because you're not caring, you're not looking. There's no victim services provided to these families. There's no, they can't access protection like restraining orders, like a young girl would be able to access for if she was trafficked. They put restraining, like victims of crime I talked to. So like, there's so many. I even called for a task force. I was like, this needs a full-on task force across jurisdictions to combat this problem, because it's not one criminal organization, it's multiple. And I'm not a detective, I'm not a missing persons human trafficking constable. So you guys need to get together and communicate better and fight this to decrease these numbers. It's not going to ever fully stop, because human trafficking is a global issue, like you mentioned the Epstein files. But as individuals, we need to care.
It makes money. It is a billion-dollar business, and it's supply and demand. That's what people are not comprehending. It is supply and demand. And so, like you said, it's going to continue, but we can help put a dent in it, and we can save lives. if we all work together. See, the problem we have here on our reservations, it's sovereign land, but they don't have the authority to arrest a non-member on their own sovereign land.
Mhm.
So these people that are, not native go onto the reservations, commit crimes, and knowing full well they will never be held accountable unless it's something that the FBI comes in on.
Mm.
So there, that's a problem that needs to be addressed here, because sometimes you have a city and you might have, like you said, the county sheriff, the city police, then you have the native police, you have the Bureau of Indian Affairs, you have the FBI, and they play jurisdictional roulette. Well,
Yes.
who covers this? And it's like, no, people, it's a crime. This person needs to be arrested. Okay, if you don't want a non-native to be held in a jail, fine. Let them arrest them and then put them in a federal, that's
Yeah.
fine. But they should have the authority to arrest anybody on federal land or on their own sovereign land. That's
Yeah.
our biggest problem.
Yeah, but in part of the problem too is that if the authorities, the non indigenous authorities find out about this, they don't really do anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah, they just look the other way.
You know, it's
And
kind of a, well, that's a Indian problem. You know,
Mm.
and that's, it's horrible to hear and see, but that's the way of life that they have come to know on the reservations.
Mm.
see, and
It's awful.
I even wonder if some of your young men could be sent to some of our reservations on the borders, because they are having bigger and bigger drug problems on the borders.
I mean, I would hope that they wouldn't be able to leave without, proper ID from Canada. But there's a lot of fake IDs. There was a bust the other day, police corruption case, and the pictures that came out of that police officer's house was like a ton of fake IDs, like a ton. Like he had health cards, he had driver passports, everything. Like this is I
Ugh,
don't know if you guys heard that in the news, but there's a big scandal this year with the Toronto police, and I think 10 officers were arrested.
oh my
And
goodness.
Wow.
I was terrified. I was like, okay, great. Let me go through my emails and see if any of these people I've spoken to, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the families were in panic mode. They're like, see, we told you we can't trust them. I'm like, okay, let's roll it back a little bit. Let's ground ourselves in facts. Let's find out what the facts are. But the media has not updated the public on this. It's very
Yeah.
hush hush. But yeah, the evidence that came out from that was like connected to the tow truck wars that we've been having. Like there was like shootings and tow trucks being set on fire, and people were like, what was going on? Apparently it was all connected to 10 corrupt police officers, which blew my mind, and then leads
Yeah.
me to believe that how can we count on you to protect
Yeah.
our kids from human trafficking if you are a part of the criminal organization itself?
Oh, yeah.
That is
Yeah.
very disturbing and does not sit well with a lot of people here in Toronto.
Well, and the fact that they were doing fake IDs, I'm sorry, to me, that just sends a red flag that they might have been dealing with a trafficking organization, because why else are you doing all these fake IDs? And that's scary. I totally understand how you'd be terrified of that. I know trying to cover crimes in Canada is harder, because Canada is not great at sharing information on crimes. Here in the United States, our reporters dig and they find stuff out, and it gets put out in the open a lot of times.
Well, they have the
Unless
Freedom of Information Act down here. So
yeah.
Oh, they find red tape for that. They're like, oh, you want information? Well, you're gonna have to go through all this red tape
yeah.
to try to
Yeah.
get it. There you
Yeah.
go. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
It's like,
So it is, because we've tried to cover cases in Canada, and like I said, there's some that we have to kind of limit the information to what we can find online, because it's just, you can't go to the government and get details. Um, so it's, but man, that's terrifying to think you had over 10 officers that were involved. And that had to be from the bottom up to the top of people that were involved.
Yeah, some of them are very seasoned officers. Like one was a retired officer, so and his son, like it was crazy. I would like I checked the other day to see if there's any real updates on it, but they're very hush hush about it. Um, I assume that some type of trial will have to happen, but I think most of them were suspended with pay. I think only
Yeah.
one of the officers was actually like held in custody. Um, and again,
Oh,
like that's terrifying. So, but I try not to make assumptions. I'm going to let the trial process
yeah.
go through. I just want to make sure that, because I have to essentially work pretty closely with officers, because they're the
Right.
ones that I have to be like, hey, let me light a fire under your ass, go find this kid.
Mhm.
Like
Yep.
in the beginning it was like, what are you do like what are you really doing? um so I do tend to have to work across jurisdictions to try and say, hey, we have digital evidence, digital footprints leading us to your area. Yeah, I've traveled to Sarnia, Aurelia. I've traveled to Thunder Bay, met with mayors, met with the police there. I've successfully located one of our boys on a boots to the on the ground search. After a 4 day search, we were able to find him. And yeah, these are just like they were raiding trap houses in front of me. It was very mind blowing, like just what I saw, like the
Yeah.
bullet holes on the walls, like the smell of urine and feces, and just like blood. Like it was like nobody should be living in these conditions, much less children. You wouldn't want your dog, your cat. No, you wouldn't want
Yeah.
anyone in these type of areas. To see children forced to work out of these trap houses
Mhm.
is totally like, no, it's just this is like supposed to be the Western world. It's supposed to be North America. We're supposed to
Right.
be protecting our boys and our girls, and we're failing. We are
Yeah.
failing miserably.
And once they put them in these trap houses, they're there to what? Dispense the drugs, take the money, deposit the money, deliver that kind of a situation, right?
Yeah, they work 24 hours a day. They barely eat, they barely sleep. Food is delivered. They have, these organizations have their own drivers. They have women that house these boys 5, 6 at a time, and then people come pick them up and transport them to different trap houses. These trap houses apparently are making like over 100K per day. The boys don't get to keep any of the money. They just get the money and then they handed the money out, so they have people that pick that up, or they deposit it. And I talked to FinTrack. I'm like, hello, like financial scams here, like these, like this should be on your radar. Real estate, like this is a cross Canada problem. This money is going somewhere.
Yeah.
And it could be going into real estate, it could be going, it's money laundering, whatever. Like that's not my side of it again. Like I'm just the
Yeah.
person here working with families trying to find their kids. I cannot, and I don't want to, and I don't intend to take down criminal organizations. That's not my job.
Right.
Your job as the police is to find people that are exploiting children.
Yes.
And a lot of times when we find our boys with adults and it's a 48-year-old woman or a 50-year-old woman, I'm like, what the hell? Like you have someone's child in your house for a year, and the family is looking for this child. What is wrong with you? Like what is wrong with you? Right? It surprises me, some of these people, but I know they're not at the top of the food chains or top of the enterprise, so to speak. They are lower level participants in these organizations.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so, but I understand your point. It's like you're trying to point out to the police that, hey, if you can't get him here, you could at least try and get him on money laundering, because there's other options to go down. You should be tracking this. I mean, money coming from these abandoned like places, or places that they've taken over, whose name is on them. We have, sadly,
Yeah.
sometimes it's like you just become this detective that keeps looking under every avenue to try and come up with the answer, all in
Yeah.
search of a missing child,
Yeah.
you
It's
know?
it's just like the pieces should be there for them to be able to solve the puzzle. I don't know why there it seems like they're missing the pieces, and that's the thing. Like, how deep does this really go, right? Like, and
Yeah.
why has this gone on for so long? It's Yeah, I'm seeing this parallels in the UK. Um, People reach out to me from there. They call it something different there called county lines. But they're battling it differently and they recognize it early as human trafficking and they're handling it much better than we are here in Canada. And I hope that you know, that now moving forward, as I see some progress in the way these cases are being handled, that we continue on that trajectory of actually doing something about it, more action and less, you know, uncoordinated response.
And I think another thing that they don't stop and consider is once you do get a boy out of this, the trauma that they have been put through and the services they're going to need. Because
Mm,
it's not like you bring them home and it's all joy and happiness because they've been traumatized. They've been through the wars. And to try
yeah.
and get them to fit back into the family, I can't even imagine how difficult that is.
It's very difficult. Quite often, the traffickers still have their claws in the backs of these children. Like we mentioned earlier, the debt bondage thing, they have a debt to pay off a lot of the time. So I've had reports where, a little boy, a teenage boy, is being called like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. His mom is hearing his phone go off because this trafficker wants him out and working. Um, there are individuals within the systems that I found that are allies and they do care deeply and are trying to help. But yeah, the issues that the families are experiencing, it's like just fragmentation. Like if and where do you turn now that your child is recovered? And now there's a healing process. They've been out of school for a year. They need to catch up with that. They have to reintegrate into their own family, into their own environment. So the longer a child is out there and the longer the delay, the more healing is that has to take place. And we really try to work on the healing, the crisis, and the post recovery phases, and hold the families up through all three processes. Yeah.
And then you had talked about Amber Alerts that you wanted to talk about that. So what was your take on the Amber Alert situation?
Amber Alert here in Canada is almost like a joke. You have to see the person, the child, or the person, mostly children. Doesn't really, I don't think adults can get the Amber Alert,
No.
but you have to see a child be abducted. So you have to see the color of the car, the license plate, the suspect description. You have to have like I think there's 4 or 5 criteria that has to be met in order for an Amber Alert to be activated. And people say, oh, well, if we did an Amber Alert for every child, your phone would be going off 3,000 times a day, and they're probably right because this is an epidemic of disgusting child
Yeah.
predators in this world. Um, so yeah, there's just these cases just don't qualify for Amber Alerts, and those are the reasons why they're not. It's not like Hollywood where a van comes up and you push the kid in the car and the van go. That's just not the case here. This is a
Yeah.
process, and these people are operating basically out of sight.
Yeah. Well, and I think because we've discussed this many times about trafficking, it's not the white van, that comes up and grabs the child. This is someone that has groomed this child. They have, put this into their head that they believe and they go willingly, but not with totally knowing what they're doing because they're children. They cannot consent. And I think that's one of the other huge issues is talking about what consent is. A child can't
Yeah,
consent to these things. So we have to quit treating them as criminals.
yeah,
These are victims.
exactly.
Yes, some horrendous things can happen when a crime that they're involved in, happens. Um, but still, they need to be looked at as victims and not
Absolutely.
as the criminal mastermind of anything. But
Yeah,
I
and
know,
if they're treated as victims, then you could potentially get information as to how they got there, right? If you're tasering them and throwing them in handcuffs and punching them on the way to the cruiser, that's not going to work to get a victim to open up to you about
no,
his trafficking and his trafficker, how he got 15 hours away from home. The tactics needs to change. Like, you need to treat the child as a victim, separate them, put them in a room, speak to them, provide them with victim services, get them to open up. These are children we're talking about. These are not adults. These are young boys. And the problem that I see is that when they continue to allow this to go on and the child gets deeper and deeper and deeper into these criminal organizations, they will eventually be committing serious crimes because they've allowed it to go on with no intervention. So I have had one case where I put his flyer out in 2024. He was one of our first 6 cases. And about 6-7 months later, he was all over the news because he had committed a serious crime. And here in Canada, there's child protection laws. Typically, minors are not, their faces and their identities are not exposed on the
right,
news. This child, that was thrown out of the window when they had to find him because he committed a horrendous crime, allegedly. So that broke my heart, because how many adults crossed that child's path before that happened? How many teachers, how many counselors, how many neighbors? There were so many adults that could have intervened, that would have allowed him to not continue to fall through one after the other to the point where he got that deep. And he did something that allegedly he did something that he can't come back from,
right,
that's the responsibility of adults, is to ensure that we are there for them every step of the way. That's why I'm doing presentations at York University. It's faculty of education, talking to teachers. Quite often, boys are the teachers are the last point of contact before they're taken.
right.
Frontline workers, they are right there. They're the last human contact before the child is taken. So really getting everybody on board to combat this together.
Yeah, and I think, because I know here, it's kind of the same situation that we're seeing, is that, you know, the kids they just want to throw that criminal label on them and not really look at what's going on. That this isn't a child that was a criminal mastermind.
Mm.
um, they get put in a situation, and with any kind of trafficking, eventually the traffickers are going to put them in a situation to become part of the organization the longer they're in. That was one thing. Chong, she became a madam, because
Mm.
it was like, the steps up, because they get you involved so that you don't walk away.
Yes.
And it's still all control. They're still controlling you.
Yes.
So yes, you might be part of the organization now, but it's not like you have free will to walk away. And
Nope.
that's the whole thing. You don't have the free will to walk away. And I think
Yeah.
that's what we're missing.
Children can't perceive that, right? Like, they
Yeah.
can barely perceive to brush their teeth the next morning. Let's just be real. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like children cannot perceive that this person who is befriending me and buying me McDonald's on lunch is going to eventually have full control of my movement, what I eat, when I sleep. And I have to answer to this person. And who is there to save me? Nobody. Nobody is
Yeah.
coming to save me. My parents have no idea where I am. I've been moved to another province. I've moved to another city, another country. This is it is beyond upsetting. It's taken over my life. I work 7 days a week, 8 to 12 hours a day. I find out terror missing boys. I still try to make, do the things I did that actually put food on the table before this. So I can sustain myself. I've had to take counseling. I took 8 sessions of free counseling. We have social workers and counselors who help our families, and offered me 8 free sessions because I needed it. I was exposed to all this trauma, and just trying to now find structure and build up an organization that needs to exist beyond me as one person,
Yeah.
that needs to have a full-fledged group of people that's running it, intake, prevention, and tracking these cases, data collection. um, so much needs to go into this organization, and I'm hoping that I can sustain it long term, because it's essentially saving lives.
And you have your Facebook page, right? And
Yeah, find out
also Instagram. Maybe you can email me your links to everything so that we'll put them in the show. Do you have a Discord server?
I don't have a Discord.
Okay.
I've been on there a few times, and I'm like, when I went to MIT for a couple of years ago, I joined Discord, and then I was like, oh, I don't know if I should continue. It's a lot. It's a lot of platforms.
Yeah.
But right now we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok, we have an X as well, which is not too active, and then we have Threads, and our main page is Instagram, and then we have the findontermissingboys.ca website, which right now is still being developed, but there's a story collection on there where families can come on and they can share their stories, and that helps with our data collection, and combating the issue, raising concerns and how these families are being treated. So the story collection is very important for families to be able to finally get their voices heard.
Yeah. And that is, the families need to be heard, because when they're not being heard, because we see this in the native and indigenous communities,
Mm.
they have nowhere to turn,
Yeah.
you know. And so a lot of the times I start with my stories, information I get on Facebook, and reaching out to families that need a platform to come out and say, this is what's happened to my daughter or my son, and we need help. We need this story told. Um, and I know now we have a Discord server. I just know it's a place where the community can come together, and chat. And every now
Yeah.
and then we do live events on there where people can come in and we can just talk about. Sometimes we talk about nonsense, just because, like you said, you deal with some deep and dark subjects. And that's why if you see my neon signs back there, we have our little space alien, because a couple of my mods are alien people. So we always tease them that their Uber's coming, you know. Ju- just just because when you deal with the dark subjects, you have to have some levity, you
Yeah.
know, because it can get overwhelming.
Yeah, now that it's a bit warmer now, I mean, we're not into full spring weather yet, unfortunately, but now that it's a bit warmer, I like to go outside and walk my dogs and remind myself that, nature is very healing. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, I put my phone on silent like at a certain time now. Before I was like taking calls like all hours of the night, and just like spending like 6 hours on the phone with some family members, and just like going, just really diving headfirst into this epidemic. And then I realized, hey, your own mental health is very important. You will not be able to sustain this if you are taking calls at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. and, families are in crisis. And as much as I still want to do that, I also have to remember like the long term plan here, and that,
Yeah.
I do have a group of volunteers and we meet periodically, but it is predominantly just me. So I need to be able to stay healthy and strong for the families and for the boys, because we are planning another search. We'll be leaving soon to search for Josiah Webb Long, who's been missing since March 27th, 2025. And you
Is that
know,
is that the young man was in Pelican?
yeah,
Pelican
so
Bay.
he was tracked to Pelican Narrows. The
Oh,
home
okay.
that he was apparently tracked to was evacuated due to wildfires, and there's been no sign of him since. And that's an RCMP case. His family is really going through it. His mom is obviously going through it. His siblings, his uncle, his aunts, everybody, his grandmother, everybody's really suffering, and there's just been no sign of him. So I won't stop until I
Yeah.
find out what happened to him, and I'm very determined. I don't give up easily at anything, and I don't half-ass anything either. So, um, I'll be going there, and I will be paying for the flights and hotels for at least two family members that want to join, and obviously meet with the RCMP who's taken over the case. They have publicly said that the case has been, is suspicious, is considered suspicious. And, I'm hoping for the best. And it's a 9-hour search. So for drive from Saskatoon to Pelican Narrows, it's far up north, and it's a
Right.
very shady area, like Prince Albert area. It's like probably one of the top 10 most dangerous cities in Canada, including Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay is our murder capita here. Highest murder per capita here. So a lot of these cities are border cities, or they're very dangerous cities, places where children, anything can happen to them, right?
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping that we can go sooner than later. I checked last week and it was like snowing. It was like -15 and it was like a snowstorm there. I was like, okay, we're gonna have to wait a little bit longer because it's gonna be hard to search
Yeah.
in those kind of conditions.
yeah.
So
Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah. See, we're down here in Texas where it's hot.
I
All
love
the
Texas.
time. All the time.
I was
Yeah.
in Texas, in Austin, for a couple weeks. I was there, and it was hot,
Yep.
and I went in
Yep.
March.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of people, when you live down here in Texas, you'll see people, they're like, August and September are actually even the hottest, and people want to take vacations then and
Yep.
get out of the state because it's just,
Yeah, March was
it's
like hot. I was like, "What is going on here?" I was trying to stand in the shade. I was like,
And
"Oh my
actually,
God."
March is one of the cooler months.
yeah. Well, see, and part
Compared
of
to
the problem,
Toronto, it was hot. I was like, "This is not." Yeah.
yeah. And in fact, last night we were supposed to have a show, and I had to cancel because I had a migraine because we had a cold spell come through, which was really rare. And so when the barometric pressure changes, I can get migraines, and it was just like I was looking at Doc. He's like, "I'll make the call. We'll cancel tonight."
and
I'm
when
trying.
we say a cold front went through, it got down to the lower 70s
Yeah,
Fahrenheit. So it's not like
yeah.
That's
But
warm.
but when you're already used to the upper 80s, and
yeah.
all of a sudden you go down to the low 70s, that barometric pressure drops, and it's just like, oh, my brain just goes into a massive migraine.
Your
So
fingers start to get like stiff and stuff, and your toes start to get stiff. Just that temperature drop is crazy.
Yeah.
You're not
it
used to it.
is. It is. But what are some things you want families to look for? What are the signs families can look for that would show maybe their child is being groomed?
Yeah, excessive like online time. So if your child is using their phone more often, their phone is going off more often, then there's a problem. If they look like they're anxious when their phone goes off, their facial expression changes, like something is off. If you're seeing injuries to your child's face or body, that's a red flag. If you're seeing your child has pulled back a little, less talkative, personality shift, that's a red flag. If you're seeing that they're hanging out with slightly older boys, so you're looking at a 13-year-old boy hanging around with a 24-year-old young man, that's a major red flag, because those 24-year-old young men have been groomed when they were the 13-year-old, and now they're
Okay.
being used
Mhm.
to usher in the new generation, right? So you're not gonna want your 13-year-old child hanging around with a 23-year-old man. Like, that's
Yeah.
uncalled for. There's no
Yep.
similarity there. There's no reason they should be
Yeah.
friends. If your child pulls away from extracurricular activities, like we have boys that were really excelling in sports, like colleges were looking at them, and when they're young, even, right, like spotting them as future basketball stars or whatever, and then your child all of a sudden loses interest in the sport that he was amazing at, that's a red flag. Your child comes home with an additional cell phone that you didn't purchase for them out of nowhere, that's a red flag. Brand new shoes, clothing, jackets you did not purchase for them, anything in the home that you did not buy for this child, red flag. He's being gifted, and this trafficker has his eyes on your child. those are just some of the things, and
Right.
work opportunities. Your child comes home, like we have an unemployment rate right now is like 14% for youth. So if your child comes home and says, "Hey, mom, I found a job," red flag, because ain't nobody finding kids are not finding jobs here right now. Our
Right.
economy is crap for children. So if your child, 16-year-old boy, comes home and says, "Hey, mom, I found a job," you need to take that child to that so-called job yourself, drive the child there, ensure that it's a legitimate job. Don't let this person pick up your child who apparently has a job for him. Um, if you're seeing other kids going missing in your area, red flag. Your area is being targeted. Schools specifically are being targeted. And when I say targeted, and I don't want the school board to come for me because they don't like when you call them
Yeah.
out. But if your kid, if I have two or more kids missing from the same school, that is a red flag to me. And I've
Yeah.
identified the school now as a problem. That is potentially these predators are targeting that school. So if you have, and a lot of times the schools do not communicate with the parents when these children are missing from the school, and that's a problem as well, because if there's several missing kids from your child's school, your kid could be next.
Yeah.
Yes.
The red flags just go on and on and on. I've already listed like 10. There's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
And it seems like an overwhelming task to keep track, especially when you work two jobs, or both parents
Sure.
father's a construction worker or whatever, works 12 hours a day. Mom works in night shift or whatever. But yeah, that's when the siblings come in, and I always say, put a tracker on your kid. My daughter has a tracker on her phone. She tracks me. She knows when I leave the house. I know when she leaves the house. We will have a tracker on her phone to the day I die, and I have no shame about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know I had Cola Tower is an advocate out in Oregon, and one of her programs that she runs is having your family fill out sheets, and it's a sheet of paper that tells what are your passwords for this, or this. Because if my child or my family member goes missing, I have to be able to get into their devices, because not
Mm-hmm.
always will these companies work with you. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we even had the police with one case wouldn't even take the devices, and it was the parents' devices. They'd paid for them, but they said that she was 17, they weren't gonna worry about it.
That's a major
She had
problem.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like,
Major problem.
know what their sign-ins are. Um, had one person, one of another creator, he said that someone had told him, "Put a tracker in your kid's shoe."
Yeah,
You know?
tag them, air tag their backpack, air tag their clothing
Yeah,
randomly. Just go in their room, air tag a couple things, put all 10, 15 air tags. I don't care. I will do
yeah,
anything it takes. And back what you were just saying about the online predators, there's tons. We've had several school shutdowns from online predators this year alone. There's been over a dozen kids, I think, that have been targeted off of Roblox this year alone.
Yep.
So
yes.
these people are targeting your children. Your child does not have to leave the house for your
No.
child to become a victim of human trafficking. Your child could be
Absolutely
in
not.
their room and on Snapchat, on Telegram or WhatsApp, or on, Roblox, and this predator is talking to your child. And it's been
Yes.
all over the news. There's been multiple cases. I saw like 6 early in the year. So we must be at probably a dozen or more now where children have been abducted off of Roblox. If I had a child that was at that age of playing Roblox, my daughter's older, but if my child was in the demographic of Roblox, there would be no Roblox in the house, because these predators know where the children are, and they go to your child where your child is playing online. The online problem is massive. And if you're seeing your child spending too much time online, there could be a predator that he's talking to or she's
Yeah.
talking to. Yeah.
I know we did a story on the group 764,
Hmm.
and also cult CVLT,
Yeah, they're
and
in Canada
how
now.
how they're international, and how they
Hmm.
go online and they get these kids to do horrid things online, and then they film it and put it out there.
Yeah,
And so
extortion.
yeah, so like you said, the child does not have to leave the house to be trafficked and to be abused. And I know for some parents and grandparents, because there are a lot of kids that end up living with a grandparent, and they might not have the tech knowledge to understand, because here in Houston, we had quite a few missing girls in an area. I think it was last year that all disappeared. And most of them got them back, but one of them they did not, you know. It was a bad ending. And so it's a situation where I don't know if we need to start offering classes or something to parents and grandparents so that they can understand some of this technology.
Mhm.
Like I said, I'm not a techie person, but I have Doc,
Well,
you
Mhm.
know. But
the thing is with the older generation, um, they we can offer courses on things, but some of them are unwilling to participate in that because they are so illiterate of the
technology,
technology that
yeah.
they feel left out. I mean, it's just yeah. But so what's the answer? You know, at, absolutely you have to educate them on the problem.
Maybe,
What's the problem,
yeah.
and then maybe getting them to realize that yeah, well, this is like super important that
May,
you go through this.
do you think
Yeah.
maybe it's putting some shorts together? Because even a lot of times, if someone is not, real tech savvy, they still might go on, TikTok or YouTube, or just getting the information out that, here's, like you were going through signs, maybe just doing some shorts with, here are these signs, or, you know, um,
Yeah, we have to find another way to reach the caregivers that, like you said, a lot of grandmas, grandpas,
yeah,
caregivers that are older, might not be tech savvy. I think a workshop for them, just teaching them the basics, and then even just them being able to log in, check messages. Not every kid is going to want to have you to have their login. And then what we're finding now is that kids create multiple accounts and
yeah,
multiple logins, so that
Hmm.
the account that you have access to, they is not the one that they're using daily. They're having this secondary account, which is like it's almost like a burner phone. Like you
yeah,
can't
Yeah.
even monitor it. Like the boy that went missing in New York earlier this year, he left and went on the train, and his parents were on the, like his mom was on the Fox News and other news channels, and I don't know if they ever found. I don't think they ever found him. And he was well traveled. He was well educated. He was a very smart boy. Went on the train, met with this predator guy or whoever, and disappeared. So it's like, it's terrifying. I try not to put the fear in parents, but at the same time I want to put the fear in parents, because it's like, this has to be on your mind 24/7.
yeah,
It's
Yeah.
the world that we're living in now, the access that these people have to your kids, the cult groups that are showing up online. It's very terrifying. Like, and I don't know how else I can only do so much, but each one
yes,
teach one. I always say each one teach one. So parents, community, we need to get back to community, get back to knocking on your neighbor's door, knowing all the
yes,
kids on your street, watching out for your kids. If you see your neighbor's kid talking to an older guy that she shouldn't be talking to, call your neighbor, knock on her door, say, hey, I saw, Angela down the street with this creepy old looking man. Like, we need to get back to having each other's backs.
Yeah.
And I think
yes,
that in itself is very powerful.
yeah. And
Unfortunately for a lot of people that and I'll tell this to a lot of people, um if they're uneducated and not tech savvy and things, it becomes a situation where it's not a problem to them. But the problem is it's not a problem until it is a problem,
yeah,
and then it becomes a problem.
yeah. And then sometimes it's too late.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
getting people, like you said, getting people clued into that there is a problem and we need to address it. before it becomes a huge problem.
Yeah.
And I think we do that by sharing these kind of discussions, letting people know if you have someone in your neighborhood that's a grandparent that's raising kids, like you said, have a conversation. We did that not too I think it was last year. One day I told everybody, this week everybody go say hello to a neighbor, not just wave, actually say hello. Introduce your normally it's introduce yourself because we don't know our neighbors.
Yeah.
So take that step, go introduce yourself to a neighbor. And Doc and I did, because we had a new neighbor moved across the street. So we got cookies. We went across the street and introduced ourselves.
Yeah.
It's almost a situation where people in the society that we live in, I remember one person saying one time, they were asked whether they knew this other person. Well, I know of them, but I don't know them personally.
Yeah.
And that's the way an awful lot of people are with their neighbors. Well, they know of them, but they don't really know them.
I see them walk to their car.
Yeah.
I know they have a job because they leave at this time every day.
You don't know their name. You don't know their children's names. That we've lost that feeling of community. I don't know. I know COVID didn't help. I hate to use that word because it's a bad word, but it didn't help, and we got more distant.
Right.
And we just stayed that way. And that's why I did the series of town halls early on, is to bring people back together, to have us support one another, to have us talk about the issues that we're facing, and to really lift each other up. We need to get back to that. And specifically for this crisis, the human trafficking of children, that is like key to essentially saving the lives of our kids. We need to know our kids on our street. You're not just taking care of your kid. This is a, the village raises the child type of mentality, right?
Definitely.
And that's important, I think.
Have you seen any of the situations where kids bring other kids into it? Like if they're starting to get groomed, are they bringing their friends along? Or is it just the groomers are like targeting one kid and then that kid kind of stops hanging out with his friends? Or
I've seen situations where friends are moved at the same time. So the boy who I went to and found in Thunder Bay after a 4-day search out there with his uncle, he was actually moved from the Toronto area out to Thunder Bay with a friend. And through the process, the 1 month they were out there, they were separated. So back to what I was saying earlier, when, they have women who receive these children, have 5 or 6 boys at a time, and then different drivers will pick boys up and transfer them. So they were separated in that process. But I've had scenarios where groups of children who are friends are targeted, and then will be moved 2-3 boys at a time, and then separated once they get further north, away from their environments, away from their families, away from their, where they know anyone. So once they isolate them, that's when the full control takes over. And, that's really terrifying because they have no way to get back. You can't walk 15 hours drive to your back to your house in your neighborhood. So that isolation is really devastating. So they do target friend groups.
I was wondering.
And then I wouldn't say that the friend says, "Oh, come with me," but I think that it's like, okay, let me get as many kids. If I can spot this vulnerable child, maybe this vulnerable child will say, okay, well, I'll try, or, I'll take a friend with me or whatever, and think that they're safer because they have a friend.
Right.
And then the friend and him get separated. We see a lot of times it's 2 siblings, like we have 2 siblings that went missing, their children, and that's unheard of in Canada, where 2 siblings go missing together. They still haven't found them. It's a high profile case. It happened in the West Coast. Jack and Lily Sullivan, they're babies, like they're young kids, right?
Yes.
I shared their case as well, because it's like, where did these kids go? But we're finding that with our boys, where they'll target a friend group and they'll be able to manipulate one or two boys to go, and then they separate them. They won't keep them
Yeah.
together. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because if you separate them, you take away their support system. Because when they're
Mhm.
together, they think they have a support system and that they can handle it, and then you separate them. That makes
They
sense.
have no agency whatsoever. They don't
Right.
even decide when they eat or sleep or shower.
Yep.
They have no agency.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
I think that's why this was an important conversation to have. What advice do you have for us down here in the States? What should be our first steps in looking at this happening here? Because I'm sure it is.
Yeah, yeah, that's the advice I would say, because it is happening. I mean, people,
Yeah.
the cases are numerous in the states, and I think the community, we have a lot of knowledge. If we share and we raise our voices, and the systems in Canada, in the U.S., in the U.K., and across the world need to truly listen to our voices. And for the parents, I think prevention starts long before the child is reported missing, right? So
Right.
we need to, like, the proactive, the red flags, things that we discussed today. Make sure that those are the things that you're looking out for, and no family should have to navigate this crisis alone. So don't. I find, like, a lot of families. I started a support circle, like 6 families, 6 moms or dads at a time, because you should not be navigating this alone. If you're going through this, do not, go through this crisis by yourself. The mental health struggle with it. I have one mom on a heart monitor. Things that you're dealing with alone, you're not alone. And I want
Right.
people to know that. I want the families to know that. Unfortunately, this is an epidemic, a global epidemic. Children go missing every single day, and to isolate yourself in a crisis is not recommended. I recommend that you reach out to your trusted friends, family, um, neighbors, coworkers, whoever it is that you trust. You need to get support. Don't suffer in silence.
Yeah. We have a
Yeah.
couple of creators down here that they have started. It's called Advocacy Con, where they
Mm.
actually bring families that have had trauma together. And at least once a
Yes.
year, they have a big, instead of like Crime Con, which I'm sure you've heard of, and people come in. This is called Advocacy Con, and it's just set up for the families.
Yes. That's.
And it for the families to come speak about their story if they wish to. They also, Whitney and Melissa also have like rooms if they just need to get away and have some quiet time. They bring, people in to talk about, like you said, the signs or what to do. What's the first step when someone goes missing? John Lorden of Lorden Arts had put together a whole thing, and I think he was a speaker at the first one that they did. And so things, I think groups like that are trying to, like you said, help bring these families together because they need the support. And sometimes another family that's going through it can give you that support.
Yeah, it's been heartbreaking to see some families that I've helped, and then I always check on the families, and more families come in, and then I never forget about the families that I started with. Right, they're extended
Yeah.
family, so I find that sometimes um, when things continue, or it continues in a different way, or the trafficker still has their claws into the child, like we mentioned earlier, they'll be hesitant to reach out again. It's like, no, reach out to me again. I'm still here to support you. We will work together and provide you. Now, finally, I'm getting, victim services involved, and, like, I'm getting more supports as far as referrals and legal supports for the families, where I didn't have those things in place early on. So it's really important for families to still reach out and keep in touch, because the resources have expanded, right? My
Right.
access has expanded since the beginning. So, when family members reach out and say, hey, something's going on, and, I find that families really isolate themselves through crisis,
Yeah.
and that's not the way to go. You need people to surround you and lift you up in these times. And that's why I'm here, and that's the work I'm doing, and I will continue to do. And the groups that you mentioned, that's great. I think that people need to have more of those things for these families. Yeah.
Yeah. Do any of those women that were holding those boys for the group that groomed them, are any of them being held accountable?
No.
Ugh,
And that's the thing that I would like to see, and I did speak on this in a documentary that I was in earlier this year. And I'm working on my own a couple other projects to bring awareness to this, but um, there needs to be human trafficking charges to these
yeah.
adults. When you're found with children that don't belong to you in your home,
Yes.
and you have drugs and guns in your house, you need to be charged with human trafficking because you have a 14-year-old child that doesn't belong to you in your home who's been missing for a year. So you need to be held accountable, and the laws exist, like we mentioned. Human trafficking laws exist, and it's because these boys were not identified as human trafficking victims. They were locking them up, throwing away the key, charging them with the drugs and the guns in the 48-year-old woman's house. Same charges as the trafficker. They get the same charges. That is a major problem when you're charging kids with the possessions of an adult woman or man, and
Yeah.
the child is found in their home. Doesn't give you a reason to say, okay, this child, like, find out why the child is there before you throw these same charges as an adult, who these things belong to. It's her home, right? So
Right.
that's still a problem, and that's still a mountain that we need to climb, in the fact that
Yeah.
these human trafficking charges need to be laid across the board. These adults should not be getting away with it.
And like you said earlier, you need someone to go in there and talk to these kids that understands trafficking because most traffic victims do not recognize themselves as victims.
Hmm.
Um, they will protect the traffickers
Yeah,
because
dependent.
they've had to rely on them for if they've been gone for a year, that has been the only person they have had in their corner in their mind. So you have to have someone that understands trafficking, really talk to these child, let them see that this isn't okay, that what's
Mm,
happened to them, they are victims, or not even victims, they're survivors. I
yeah,
think that's a word that if you let someone know you have survived this, because sometimes
yes.
you say victim and they just crawl into themselves like, I'm not no victim.
Mhm,
I went willingly. No, you're a survivor because you
mhm.
got coerced into going. You got put in a situation you didn't intend to be in, and you weren't able to call home.
Yes, see, yes, that is exact oh my god, you gave me goosebumps when you said that,
Yeah,
like, all the hairs just stood up on my arms because it's like,
yeah,
yeah, they are survivors.
Yep.
Treat
yes,
them with the proper services and
yeah,
healing and recovery that a survivor needs. It's sometimes they need a lifelong healing process because 'cause they've
yeah,
been seen and went through things that you or I cannot even imagine. So knowing that, um they need to be protected and given with the proper services and recovery, so that they are able to return to school, return to their passions in life, return to who they truly are because they've been um, totally transformed,
yeah,
from who they truly are. So,
yeah.
mhm,
It's almost like saying someone has been abducted by aliens because they have been taken out of this world, and all of a sudden you just drop them back in, and you cannot expect them just to pick up and, "I'm going to school today, see you later, mom, I'm gonna go back to the basket." No, everything is changed, everybody else has moved on. You're now stagnant, so
mhm,
you have to give them the tools to be able to function in society again because I know we talked to a victim the other day, and her mother said it's been almost a year. She still asks if she can get something out of the cabinets to eat.
mm,
And it's like, yes, you're home, you're
mm,
okay. But
yeah,
that stigma is still there.
wow, it's
They think they have to ask permission for things. And it's like, you know, so it's not something that they instantly come home and it's a fix.
it's a
Um,
process. Yeah, it's a
yeah.
process. Mm.
And that's why these conversations are important. And I appreciate your time today, Shayna. I mean, um, this was awesome. Your work that you're doing is incredible. I'm hoping we can get more people down here in the States to start looking at it and start a movement where we're looking at these young boys and realizing they're survivors. They need to be looked at as survivors. The shame needs to be taken off of the kids and put on the people that are doing it.
Yes.
You
Thank you so
know?
much for having me. I really appreciate the conversation. I wasn't going to do any more podcasts because the last one I did, it was, oh my God, the one clip that they posted on Instagram, I think it's like 500,000 views, and it's a lot for me. So I've been trying to like stay low key, and I'm like, oh, let me try to like do things behind the scenes, you know what I mean? Which I'm always working on something.
Yeah.
Trying to stay low key. But when you sent the invite and your sincerity and everything that just came through and in the words, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
So you connected with me, I guess, energetically before we met. So thank you for having me.
We appreciate it so much.
Yeah. You talked about you like to go walk in nature. I've started a new channel where you're just getting it going. I create songs. So like before the episode airs, I'll have a song going with it's called Songs from the Dark, because I have to take the darkness and put it somewhere. And so we create, I don't sing. I have to use AI for that, but I like to write. And so that's kind of like my piece of how I get rid of some of the darkness, is by sharing it and letting people know that, hey, this is what's happening, but we're here to talk about it. We're here to help. That's and I love reaching out to other advocates, and I hope you can make some connections with some of the First Nations.
I hope so too.
I've been trying to reach out to different people and tribes. If I end up making any connections, because I do stories in Canada, I will definitely let you know and get you information if I find someone to talk to. Because down here, I've had some awesome advocates, like Lissa Yellowbird Chase, who's well known in Indian country, and one of her people she's mentored, Cisco Tobacco. So they're the kind of people that are boots on the ground like you. They walk through the fires, and they mean a lot to us.
Yeah, I'm definitely used to standing in the flames now, like the phoenix. I'm right in it.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I thank you guys for your work
Okay.
and what you're doing, spreading awareness. Like it's very, very, very important, and I'm grateful to have that conversation.
And if you have anyone that you think would be willing to come talk to us, even on the opposite side of just not victims' families, but just people that are dealing with in the police, or different advocates that you've run across that you think would like a platform to share information, we're here. Just send them our information. We're glad to open up our platform, because we just want people to know what's going on so we can protect the children. We're
Thank you so much.
all part of the human family.
Yeah.
And we need to look out for each other.
Absolutely.
But thank you for spending your time with us. I know it's valuable. You have a great day, darling. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Are we back?
We are back.
Can everybody hear me now? Put a 1 in there if you can hear me, peoples. I'm hoping everybody can hear me.
I can hear you.
Well, that's good, Doc. Can our audience hear me? Okay, they can hear. So you guys, that was Shana McCalla. And if you walked away with this episode feeling something, I want you to sit with that feeling and then do something with it. Share the episode, talk to someone about the signs, because these boys are not statistics, you guys. These are someone's reason for getting up every morning. They are somebody's child who should be arguing about what's for dinner, Mom, and complaining about their homework, and not working in a trap house, kilometers away from home, terrified to talk because the people who put them there made very sure they understood what could happen to them. This is human trafficking. It's labor trafficking. It's in Canada, but you know what? It's everywhere, and it's every child. There isn't just one single thing that we can say it's going to be this kid or it's going to be in this location. It has been allowed to scale and grow for too long. The wrong people are not being looked at. Children are being treated like the criminals, while the adults that run these networks, they're walking away free. That's not justice. That is a system failing on purpose. And Shana McCalla is one woman. One woman saw 5 faces on her phone and decided that was enough. She built something real. She showed up somewhere uncomfortable. She put a 15-page brief in front of people in power and said, read this. What can you do? Share the episode. Tag a parent, a teacher, a school counselor, a city council member. Find Ontario's Missing Boys is on Instagram. We've put them in the links. Follow them, share them, amplify them. And if you know something, anything about a missing child, please say something, because that's what it's going to count on. We have to say something. Don't wait. And very quickly, we're going to talk about our missing flyers that we always do. Remember, when you're out and about, put the cell phone down, look at faces, because you might actually be able to save somebody. Sometimes children or adults can leave voluntarily, but then they get in a situation where they can't come home because they were coerced out of the home. Other times, we know trafficking is real, and victims can pass right by us every single day, and most of us don't notice. But trust your instincts. If that person that you pass on the street, you get a feeling, don't be afraid to contact the authorities. If you are, we have a tip line. Tips, the number 4, trialjunkiesunited@gmail.com. We'll call it in for you. We don't have a problem doing that. But let's go ahead. We're going to actually share a couple of the young men that Shana's looking for. So we know every case deserves to be heard, and this is our first one that we're going to look at tonight. And this is, say the first name for me, Doc.
Josiah.
Josiah. I wanted to say it right. Josiah Webb Long. He's 16 when he went missing. He was originally reported missing on March 27th of 2025. He was last reported at Ivor Crescent and Hoxton Road from Brampton, Ontario. He was last known to be in the Pelican Narrows, Saskatchewan. May 16th of 2025 was the last time someone had contact with him. He's 5'11", a slim build, handsome young man. Black hair, shoulder-length curly hair worn in braids. He was last seen in black Nike Tech tracksuit, black hooded bubble jacket, gray socks, white Nike Air Force shoes. He was carrying a black Fila duffel bag with lime green trim. Josiah was tracked to an address in Saskatchewan. It was later evacuated when they had some forest fires up there. This case is actually under an active investigation by the RCMP and major crimes. It's being treated as suspicious. Like, no duh. But anyway, 1 year later, there's still no answers. Families should not have to fight this hard. Contact Saskatchewan RCMP Major Crimes at 1-306-780-5563, or within Saskatchewan, it's 310 RCMP 7267. There's also the Peel Regional Police at 905-453-2121, extension 2233. And they also have Crime Stoppers if you want to be anonymous, 1-800-222-8477. Missing Children Society of Canada, 1-800-661-6160. Our next one is Louis Brunel, and this young man is also 16. He went missing April 23rd of 2026. and he was last seen at 5:45 on Rymel Road East and White Deer Road, Hamilton, Ontario. He has black hair, brown eyes. He's 5'7", 115 pounds, thin build. Last seen wearing a gray hoodie, black pants, black and white shoes. His family is concerned. Hamilton Police 905-546-3836. The file number is 26-614661. Let's come back to the States. This is a native young man from Bapchula, Arizona, and I probably screwed up the name of the city, but we'll go with that. His name is Richard Lopez. He's 16. He went missing January 26th of this year. He has brown eyes, black hair. He's 5'11" and 160 pounds. Last seen wearing a black hoodie, dark blue pants, Champion shoes. Contact Gila River Police Department at 520-562-5700. And our last young man is Tyler Kalama.
Kalama.
Say that again, Doc.
Kalama.
Kalama. And I apologize to the Kalama family. He's 13, you guys. He's been missing since February 24th. Last seen at the West Hills subdivision on the Warm Springs Indian Reservation in Oregon. His tribal affiliation is the Warm Springs tribe. He has brown eyes, black hair. He's 5'6", weighs 125 pounds. He was last seen in a gray sweatshirt, baggy pants, black and white low-top shoes. Contact Warm Springs Police Department at 541-553-1171, 541-384-2080. Case number 2600167. And we send out a heartfelt thank you to Shana for joining us tonight, walking us through yet another avenue that predators are using to traffic children. Every parent, grandparent, and caregiver, you need to hear this information. Trafficking does not discriminate. It doesn't care what your zip code is. It doesn't care what your income is, your race, or your neighborhood. These predators operate on a supply and demand. It's a business model, and awareness is one of our most powerful weapons against it. So hug your children, hug those grandkids, your nieces and nephews. Know the signs. Trust your gut. If something feels off, don't wait. Contact authorities immediately, because every killer and predator depends on your silence. Don't give it to them. And remember, it wasn't a mannequin. It never is. And until next time, please stay informed, stay compassionate, keep seeking the truth, and keep demanding justice. Never, ever stop speaking up. And remember, our motto is silence is betrayal. That's why we keep doing the stories we do. Hey, Doc, do you want to say goodnight?
Yeah. Good night, Doc.
We love you all. Remember, the criminals never stop, so neither do we. We'll see you Thursday on TJU Presents Justice After Dark. Ciao.
A boy walks out the door one day, and the world keeps moving. No sirens cry out his name, no urgency, no proof. They mark him a runaway and close the file in silence. But Shana saw what they refused and answered with defiance. See them, they are sons stolen, not criminals, not forgotten. Their lives and futures were taken. See them, say their names in the open, fight for the boys left broken. Somebody has to stand up and say, see them. became a lifeline for families left waiting without answers, speaking to those in blue when no one else would. She found social workers crying, teachers begging for resources, and one woman filling the gaps that fell through broken systems. See them, they are sons stolen, not criminals, not forgotten. Their lives and futures were taken. See them, say their names in the open, fight for the boys left broken. Somebody has to stand up and say, see them. They recruit them, then arrest them, call them guilty when they're found, but a child caught in exploitation should be lifted from the ground. Give them care and safety, let them know they won't be blamed. She said it loud and clear, these are survivors. Say their names. See them, they are some, they are stolen, not criminals, not forgotten. Their lives and futures were taken. See them, say their names in the open, fight for the boys left broken. One woman stood up and dared to say, see them. Black, brown, or indigenous boys, every boy filed away. It's every boy who vanished while the world looked away. Ontario's missing deserve more than silence. Shana McCalla is calling, will you rise with her?